We don't want to freak you out, but rats have gone wild. Rats are now attacking vehicles.
A crown that no community wants to wear. A national pest control company has released its rankings of Canada's rattiest cities.
So welcome to the second half of the Audi RS5 episode 5 and why my car is on a flat deck and why you need Audi aftercare, why you need Audi roadside assistance. Yeah, this video is going to go over my Christmas present that I got this year. Anyways, if you haven't seen part 1 of this episode, go check it out, but let's dive in. So it's Christmas time, and it is the season for anxiety. You know, family get-togethers, kids, loud noises, you don't get a chance to rest. It's really a stressful time, and if there's one thing that is a relief that I really enjoy, it's being behind the wheel of the RS5. You know, having soft Napa leather, a great sound system, that tremendous V8, it's just such a nice place to be, and it really is, you know, a gift for myself, going on these long road trips into the mountains and seeing the, you know, the scenery, everything covered in snow. It really does take me away from a lot of worry and stuff. I'm just kind of focused on the road, which is nice. It's something that I really do take a lot of time to prepare for and make sure that, you know, I'm set for the journey. It's going to be safe. I got a great car, great tires, and usually it goes pretty good. Usually. First things first, as soon as I got out of the city, I want to say probably 2-3 hours into my drive, I got a check engine light that comes on. great. I'm driving and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm not that far. I could turn back. You know, what do I do? So what do you do when you get a check engine light on your car? Well, first things first, you know, slow down. Make sure you're paying attention to your engine oil temperature and your coolant temperature, just to make sure that, you know, nothing catastrophic is failing. Find a safe place to pull off and, you know, take a look under the engine and see what's going on. But what I would highly recommend is getting an OBD11 port, and I should have brought it up here to show you, but it's essentially, it's a module that can connect into your car, and it's Bluetooth to your phone. So the computer in the car can tell you what's going on, what sensors are being tripped, you know, what's the issue. And of course, for me, it was the O2 sensor, which is something that has happened to me in the past. And if you don't know, this generation of cars had a bad tendency to trip O2 sensors all the time, and they're pretty expensive to replace. But with extended Audi aftercare, it is covered, and they would replace it, except now there's actually a service bulletin. If you don't know this, they're just doing a software patch for the O2 sensor. Apparently it was just an electronic code programming fault. The sensors are actually still pretty good after they, you know, taken out probably 1 million of them. So anyways, I knew it wasn't a big issue. It had happened before, so I cleared the code, which is something you can do with OBD11. I hit the road. So I'm driving, and you know, it's not a lot of stress. I'm still back in it. I'm enjoying the scenery, and let that be a lesson though. Like, when you are planning to go on a long road trip, get your car serviced before you leave. You want to make sure your engine oil's good. If they can, check your transmission fluids, check your tire pressures. Don't just go, because it's a long journey. You know, especially this drive I was on, it's 1,000 kilometers one way. You don't want to be taking any chances. You know, so I wasn't too worried, right? Like, I already had my car serviced recently, and I sort of know what I'm doing. Sort of. One of the things you'll notice if you're driving, especially, you know, cross provinces, or if you're going a long journey, road conditions not only change because of altitude and geographic areas, but the stuff they put on the road changes too. One of the things I always notice when I get into BC, they put a lot of sand, this fine, gritty stuff that just gets in everywhere. I don't know why they do it. I can't imagine it adds much more traction. But yeah, they put this fine sand anywhere, and when it gets mixed in and liquefies with water, and it gets in everywhere. My point is, I was almost at my destination, and right before I got there, boom, I got a little beep in the car, and my brake pad light came on, telling me that, oh, your brake pads need to be replaced. At first, I was like, okay, well, it's not a big deal. It might just be, you know, the circuit is being, you know, screwed up by all the sand and stuff or whatever, but it persisted and stayed on even after I stopped the car, shut it off, got back going again. Anyways, what does this mean? So for most cars, conventionally, they have what are called screechers. So if your brake pads are getting low, when you go to apply brake pressure, it'll just screech like crazy and sound all just terrible. These cars, what they have are these little loops that are actually embedded into the brake pad. So when the brake pad wears down to a point, that loop is getting closer and closer and closer, and then that friction will actually break the circuit, triggering the sensor saying, oh, you're out of brake pads, or you're almost out of brake pads. Here's the key takeaway. If this happens to you, you have about 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers left for brakes, depending on how you drive. So you should get them replaced relatively quickly. For me, all this meant was, great, now I can't do much driving. I got to kind of putter around or use engine braking a lot because I don't want to wear out my brake pads. So that was kind of a bummer, you know, and I hadn't even gotten to my destination and the real problem that was coming. Can barely see the road. It's either Star Wars Lightspeed or not sure what's up ahead. Good example of why you need good winter tires and not all seasons. Okay, so it's Christmas morning, and my car had been parked for a couple of days, and you know, it wasn't that cold, but it was cold enough that, you know, intermittently I will go out and start it, right, to get the engine oil hot and let the engine run for a little bit just so that it doesn't freeze. And Christmas morning, woke up, went out into the snow and started my car, and as soon as I started it, I walked away and came back and heard this horrific sound. I had no idea what it was. It almost sounded like half of the engine was running, like, you know, one cylinder bank wasn't firing, and I'm like, oh God, what now? What now? So yeah, popped open the hood, and much to my delight, that's frustrating. I'm like, what? I look around, I see little droppings, I'm like, oh no. This is what it should look like. And that's the high pressure fuel pump into the electrical. And on this side, that little bastard, little rat chewed through it. It looked like a wiring harness had been chewed, not just nibbled, but clean off. You know, the high pressure fuel pump has this line that runs out into this wiring harness, and unbelievable. A rodent, a squirrel, a rat, something had got in there and decided to hang out and chew up the wiring. So I'm a pretty calm guy. I'm not one to lose my cool. And you know, it wasn't the O2 sensor that went off and my check engine light went on. No, it wasn't the brake pad warning that was kind of like, oh, well, your trip's not going to be as fun driving because you can't use your brakes as much. And no, it was the fact that I'm in a remote area. There's no services around. Like, I am in the mountains where it's a small little town, and it's Christmas, and it's also New Year's. Even if I could find a tow truck, rental car, all this stuff, who's going to be working on the holiday? And I'm practically stranded without a car. You know, I got to be honest, this situation kind of brought me down a notch. Because, you know, I was beside myself. I'm like, great. You know, it's stressful enough as it is, but now this happening, all I could do is try and think of the positive things. You know, I was staying with family, so I had a warm place to sleep, good food to eat. There was cell service and internet service, thank God. But going back to the point, this is why you should have like an emergency kit in your car, because what if this had happened at like some motel or somewhere remotely? Anyways, it could have been much worse than it was. So that's what I kept telling myself. To get over it. And speaking of preparations, this is why it's very, very important to have good insurance and things like Audi Aftercare and Audi Roadside Assistance. So first thing I did was call my insurance company, because I thought for sure that there was going to be additional damage than what I could see in the engine bay. So I'm like, well, this ain't gonna be cheap. So I called my insurance and I waited on hold for like half an hour. Got through, they were very polite and super helpful, and they said, okay, well, rodent damage, this is a common thing, it's happening more and more. And I'm like, it's happening more and more. Okay, well, what are we gonna do about it? And they said, well, where are you? And I told them I'm in Nelson, British Columbia. And they're like, oh, that's pretty remote. Yeah, I know. They're like, look, we will potentially cover the tow, probably cover the tow, but to inspect the damages and cover the damages, we can't confirm whether or not we'll do that. We have to send someone to your car to inspect it to make sure that this is something that we'll cover. I'm like, okay, you have a rep in the area? They're like, well, it's actually going to take about 3 weeks before someone can get out to you. I'm like, 3 weeks? What am I gonna do? So I said, okay, well, let me try and figure something out, because I have Audi Aftercare, and I'll talk to them and see if they can help. So if you don't know, Audi Aftercare is essentially Audi Canada is like factory warranty, and Audi Aftercare is extended factory warranty for your car. They're two separate companies, but it offers a lot of the same coverage. So if you're buying a used Audi and it qualifies, you can get extended Audi Aftercare. So anyways, I called Audi Aftercare, and they said you got to call Roadside Assistance, which is a different number. By the way, before you ever leave on any trip, if you have these coverages, make sure you have them in your phone. Like you take pictures or something, because for example, Audi Canada, which is for new vehicles, is one contact phone number. Audi Aftercare is another company with a different phone number, and Audi Roadside Assistance is another company with a different phone number. They can transfer you back and forth in between, but just make sure you have your account IDs, all these things with you when you go on long trips. So anyways, I talked to Roadside Assistance, and they made sure I was safe. They said, okay, do you need immediate retrieval? I'm like, no, I can probably wait like 24 hours or whatever. Like, okay, we'll see if we can find a tow truck in the area to come get you. I'm like, good luck. But anyways, the issue wasn't whether or not they could find a tow truck. The issue was the distance, because Audi Roadside Assistance will cover a tow to the nearest Audi dealer only, like part of the plan. But I was 300 kilometers away from the nearest Audi dealer, and I was like, sure it's going to be covered? The other thing I didn't know is whether or not I would be able to find a rental car to go with my vehicle to go to retrieve it when they could get it fixed. So I started digging into that, and there's nothing around, and I'm like, great, I'm kind of stranded here. Even if they do come and tow my vehicle, what then? When I ride a bicycle there? So as I'm like simultaneously looking for all this stuff, I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do to be proactive? Because I'm waiting for callbacks and whatever. So I actually called Southgate Audi, which is where I bought my car from here in Edmonton. And yeah, there's a parts department there, and the customer service is always really good, and no bullshit. They give you straight answers. And I talked to a guy that I always deal with, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to send you this picture. What part number is this, and how much is it to replace? Turns out the wiring harness, even though it's that little tiny bit that goes into the high pressure fuel pump, it's connected to an entire harness that goes to the entire bank of the engine on that side. Same with the other side. And it's $5,000. That hurts. Anyways, insurance will cover it. That's good. But I asked him, I'm like, is there any way, because I want to expedite the process here, can it be soldered? Or, if I can find wire strippers, can I just try and maybe do this myself? And it turns out Audi protocol for something like this is to buy a wiring repair kit, which is I think $150 or something. And what they do is, they basically, they strip if there's enough remaining and just splice in new wire, solder it up or clamp it. And my bigger concern wasn't so much that, well, maybe I can just fix it myself and go. My bigger concern was, well, what if there is damage that I can't see? I have no way of getting the car up or seeing underneath or dropping the engine out, or, what am I going to do to run proper diagnostics on this? Plus, I still have warranty, so I don't want to void that by trying to jimmy rig something myself. So I knew that the best course of action was going to be sending it to the Audi dealership in Kelowna, which is 300 kilometers away, and have them do the repairs and do an inspection so I can have some peace of mind. But I didn't know how much that was going to cost yet, so I needed to find that out to make sure it was less than my deductible or more than my deductible for insurance, and I still didn't know if Audi Aftercare was going to cover any of this. So I'm biting my fingernails, drinking eggnog.
Okay, so I have some dryer sheets, some peppermint.
Let's see, actually worked. Little peppermint patties. By the way, I didn't mention why the peppermint oil or why the dryer sheets. Well, I was chatting with the guys at Southgate Audi, the guy in parts there, and he said, if you can get your hand on what's called Bitrix, that's a really good deterrent for any animals getting into your engine bay and chewing up wires and whatever. And I'm like, Bitrix, what the hell? What is that? Turns out it's the most bitter substance known to man. It's a synthetic they put in all sorts of stuff because it tastes so awful. It stops, kids or people, like they put it in products, packaging, for all sorts of reasons. They actually prescribe it to people who have like anxiety or bite their fingernails. But anyways, turns out it's a really good deterrent to kind of spread in your engine bay. It's colorless, odorless. That's kind of the best thing to do. But good luck getting your hands on it, and it's very expensive. I'm like, well, what are some alternatives here? Well, dryer sheets are one. They hate the smell of that. And also peppermint oil they really don't like. So yeah, that's what I did. I put in dryer sheets and peppermint oil. And one thing I would recommend, don't do the dryer sheets because you might forget them in the engine bay, and that's not good. The peppermint oil, at least you can kind of spread it, and it's a liquid, so you can rub it on whatever components to try and act as a better deterrent. But the real question I wanted to know is like, why would a rat go after my engine bay? So I looked this up, and it turns out that it might have been in the early 2000s, a little bit into the 2010s, but vehicle manufacturers started using coatings on wiring to basically have like a soy base in them, because I don't know if it's lowering the cost because it's cheap, or if it's like lowering the carbon emissions footprint. For whatever reason, the wiring harnesses have this soy base, and when you mix in the fact that the engines are really warm, from driving, animals like to keep warm just like we do. They crawl in there, and in addition, if there's salt on the road, which in BC they put salt on the roads, animals really like it. And that's just like ringing the dinner bell for your engine. Like it's warm, it's salty, tasty, and the soy is like a nice tasty snack. So that's why they target the engine bays. And if you leave your car for long, like they'll make a nest and all sorts of critters will get in there. So yeah, that's why. Getting back to the story, I finally get some callbacks. My insurance company said, hey, we will cover a tow, and we're just working on finding a tow company. And once the car gets to the Audi dealership, we'll have someone, because it's a bigger city, one of our offices, someone will go there and inspect and make sure if there's damages, what we'll cover. I'm like, great. And then I got a call back from Audi Roadside Assistance, and they said, we found a tow truck company, it's been booked, it's covered, it'll be there tomorrow morning. I'm like, hey, that's fantastic. Don't have to worry about the tow. And it's like a $2,000 tow. So that was a really good reason to have Audi Aftercare. And then on top of that, I also heard back from actually the dealership in Kelowna. They gave me an estimate because I notified them the car was coming and told them what would need to be fixed. They said it'd be around $400 or $500 to do an inspection, replace the wiring harness. And I'm like, okay, that's whatever. It's less than my deductible, so I'll just pay for it out of pocket. Told my insurance company, hey, don't worry about this. I got it all taken care of. And yeah, the car was on its way, but I still had one problem. How do I get to Kelowna? Okay. So I actually had my insurance, I had Audi Aftercare and Audi Roadside Assistance trying to find a car rental place, and there's only one on the map. And it's a small chain. I think it's actually owned by CarStar. I think it's called Practicar, but they have these little satellite offices throughout the southern interior. But they don't have an office in Kelowna. So while they had a vehicle in Nelson for me to drive, I couldn't leave it in Kelowna. I had to drive it back. So I'm one person, I can't drive two vehicles. But, you know, I have a loving family, and, you know, they agreed to come with me on the trip and then drive the rental car back. And by the way, like, I don't know when the last time was you were out of your own car and driving someone else's car. Like, man, so I got to spend some quality time with the Kia K5. And it just made me miss my car. I couldn't wait to get it back. But you know, it's adding to the journey and the adventure of going on a road trip. And meanwhile, like, in the back of my mind, I'm still worried about, you know, this O2 sensor, which may or may not be an easy fix, and my brake pads, which, if you don't know, like on an RS5, I'll get to that in the next episode, but I'm worried, you know, like, I can't just keep tacking on mileage. I only have 1,500, 2,000 kilometers before the pads need to be changed, right? So anyways, looking on the bright side, it's winter wonderland. I'm driving, it's beautiful, it's scenic, all this stuff, but yeah, just really can't wait to get my car back and just get home. So I arrive at the Audi dealership in Kelowna, and everything looks good. You know, they said we inspected the car, didn't find any additional damage. The wiring has been replaced, so you can be on your merry way. So I, hopped in the car, and just enjoyed the drive home. And, you know, like, I'm still somewhat on a budget. I'm tired. I want to get home. So we drove off into the night. And this is a good example, again, going back to winter tires and being prepared. Driving in these conditions at night is terrifying if you aren't used to it. It's not like city driving where you have road lamps illuminating everything. Like, it's pitch black. If you don't have good headlights, if you don't have good tires, if you're not paying attention, like, you are out in the middle of nowhere. And unforeseen stuff happens all the time. Wildlife can be out on the road. A car might fly off the road and be somehow lodged in the middle. And, like, these are really dangerous conditions that, you know, you have to be not only very alert, but you have to be prepared as well. And in BC, it's actually illegal to have, you know, to not be running winter tires on your car, because it just got to the point where, like, so many people were flying into the ditch. And yeah, it's in the RS5, on the other hand, driving this car in the winter, it really does come alive. And, you know, I really do encourage people who have Audis, you know, if they park them in the winter, you know, because it's a sports car, you don't want to damage it or whatever, like, you should really consider at least one winter, see what it's like, because it's like these cars were made for this. The way they handle in the snow and how they handle the terrain in these conditions, it's not so much that it's all this confidence, but it's fun, it's playful, it feels like you're in control. And it's hard to describe, but you get this sensation that it's like, yes, this is what this car was made for. And it's just the scenery, you know, the landscape, what you're driving in. It's such a different experience in a sports car that you have to do it. Comes to choosing a car, or, you know, what you want to drive, you know, think of a time you almost flew off the road or had a close call, and what it means to have, you know, not just good tires, an experience, but also a really good drivetrain and a good car. And to kind of leave things on a positive note, my experience driving the RS5, summer and winter, you know, for a number of years now, it's just it's a great car. You know, it has a Gen 6 quattro system with a crown differential, and you don't know what that is. I don't blame you, but there's a quattro documentary you should watch that is on YBuy, and it covers you know, the different generations of Audi quattro systems, including Outtakes, and it's just an interesting bit of history as to why these systems are so revered and beloved by a lot of driving enthusiasts. But yeah, it's a car that it's kind of everything you want it to be when you want it to be. Like it's a sports car when you want to drive hard. It's a very safe and reliable, practical car when you just want to cruise. And I've said it before, it's a really good all-around package. And yeah, the best part is the engine in this car. It's so good. To me, driving is all sorts of things. You know, it's things that are serious, things that are trivial. I might be going to get groceries, or I might be going on a long road trip, or a really spirited drive with, you know, a driving club, or, you know, cars and coffee, that kind of thing. And that's what your car should be. If you're like me and you have the situation where you can only choose one car to do multiple things, why wouldn't you choose an Audi? And how could you possibly pass up the B8.5 RS5?
Hello.
I think if you're like me and you love driving, then you should definitely winter drive a sports car. And it really doesn't take much to do it. And is it worth it? Yeah, it is. So if you thought this video was helpful, please like and subscribe, show your support, and thanks for watching.
Yeah. I have to make sure that you are very securely fashioned. Oh, please hold. I really hope you hold. Stuff's icing up fast. Pump it up, pump the jam. Hold tight, my little friend. Survive. Pre-flight check. Secure all loose items within the cabin. Brake check. Engine check. Cool check. It just grips and grips and grips and grips. Remarkable. It still lets you step out a bit, but
it lets you step out in a predictable way in terms of, you know, having a bit of a tailfish. You know, it doesn't just kill power and bring you to a standstill. It still gives you control, and you can, you know, drive out the slide in a controlled manner. It's hard to describe, but it's like being a really, really good driver without having to be a really good driver. And God, I love this system.
What does it take for a car to become an Audi? It takes determination that knows no limits. It takes 2.5 million test kilometers a year. Searing heat, torrential rain, 300 kilometer per hour wind. Salt, 100% humidity. It takes an aging process that adds 12 years to a test vehicle in just 19 weeks. All Audi models, from the A1 to the A8, have to endure this grueling test. It takes people who listen to more than just car boots to find irritating noises, whenever and wherever. It takes engineers with zero tolerance when it comes to tolerance. Who see and perfect everything. Every gap, every seam, down to tenths of a millimeter. It takes leather that's better than leather, that can withstand 45 stringent tests. It takes feathers from Australia's biggest bird, for only emu feathers ensure immaculate paintwork. Cathodic corrosion protection. High-speed rotary atomizers, 100 micrometers, but 110% precision. But above all, it takes more than 100 years of experience and the unwavering determination to achieve perfection. That's the only way for a car to become an Audi.